seat you want, but just grab the mic that's next to you and pull it out of there. So, Joe, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We would love to talk to you about these two topics. And
those lights are great.
They are very bright. They're even brighter when you're bald, it turns out. Let's talk about both these topics. Let's start with wonder. Something led you, and I'd like to hear other times in your life, not just GOJO, but something led you to be an innovator and a creator. There was things that, yes?
Can we put Joe over there? None of us can see him.
Okay, on this chair?
Yes, please.
All right.
Thank you.
We are relocating. It's on that side. All right. So, even before GOJO, there were things you wondered about in the world that led you to do the things you do. I'd love to talk about the role of wonder that drove you to be a creator.
I'm not sure if it's wonder. I think I would describe it as what I call constructive discontent. I mean, either you get up every morning and you're really happy, and I really envy you. If we were one of those people, you know, my wife actually is one of those people. She's been a teacher for 40 years. She teaches kids with dyslexia. She gets the most, you know, she gets really deep satisfaction, and she's just always happy. I'm not unhappy, but I'm always discontent. It's almost like, well, why couldn't that be done better? And, of course, I think, Jeff, you said it pretty smartly. You have to notice things to be discontent about them. And I think I grew up in, I'll talk a little bit more later, but I grew up in a household where everybody was always trying to do something more. And so I had some pretty good role models, too. It's a great thing to have role models. But I think my wonder was mostly, I know this can be easier. Maybe I was just lazy and trying to find easier ways to do things.
Well, that's still a good driver. Talk about maybe one of the first significant things you said that you actually did, that you said, you know what, I am discontent with it. I'm going to address it and fix it. What was some of your early attempts at that in your career?
Well, I'll tell you some, I think I'll tell you a disaster first, and then I'll tell you quickly the Purell story. So, because I love the disaster stories more, because what it does is it encourages you to go out and have enough disasters in your life that you learn something. So when you finally get around to something that might work, you have some experience. Because it's really hard to make anything work until you've had some experience. So the year was 1981 or 82, before most of you were born. And I was talking about you, young lady.
You're 2 for 2 today on the age compliments.
Oh, really? I wasn't.
50 years old. I was born in 1966.
Well, you're looking pretty good. Okay. So the year was 1981, and there was a brand new product. Some of you may remember. It was called soft soap. And it came in a little pump bottle. And many of you don't even remember that there was a day before soft soap. In the day before soft soap, there was just an ugly bar of soap sitting on your sink with somebody else's dirt on it. It was quite grungy. And when soft soap came in 1981, it seemed like a great idea. And a little company in Minnetonka, Minnesota was making a fortune selling soft soap. So one day I'm in the shower and I drop my bar of soap and I say to myself, wow, why don't we have liquid soap in the shower? Now today you say, oh, of course everybody has liquid soap in the shower, right? But back in 1981, soft soap at the sink was brand new and nobody had liquid soap in the shower. So I went online, you can see I went into the magazines or whatever to the library and I found out that 77% of all soap was used in the shower. So now I'm really getting excited, right? Now we can take this soft soap idea, move it to the shower, and I can do 3 times as much as those guys, you know, and you won't be dropping the soap and tripping all over it and all of those things. So I launched a product called Shower Up. It was a disaster, all right? I don't have enough time to tell you today why it was a disaster, but my daughter would tell me it was an ugly bottle, that it looked way too male, and men don't shop for soap, it's women that shop for soap. That we didn't have the little squidgy, foamy, what do you call the loofah thing, and that, I'm sort of hairy, so when I used the liquid soap, it was fine. It would foam up, but women needed something, and we hadn't even thought of that kind of applicator yet. So for all myriad of reasons, I can't tell you what they all were, but for 3 months I thought I called my wife and told her I was really a genius that I invented this, because I sold every supermarket in the country because they all bought it, because they bought my reasoning, which only goes to show you that what I hadn't done, and there's a message in this for those of you who are, when we get down to the entrepreneurs among you who are interested in that kind of thing, but there was a message. I went right from idea and was pretty convincing to selling, and I was pretty convincing, and I sold almost every grocery store in the country, truckload after truckload after truckload after truckload. And you know where that truckloads of soap ended up? On their shelves, truckload after truckload after truckload. Now, so when I told my wife I was a genius that I sold so much, she asked me how much of a genius I was when they shipped it all back to me. But the point is that I missed one big step in my big learning. And my big learning was that I had never actually taken it out and given it to a bunch of people. I'd used it myself, but I never gave it to a bunch of people. I was so infatuated with the idea that I just ran ahead, and I never did what's called the minimum viable product. I never prototyped. I never learned. I never observed. I really, now see, if I did over again, I'd ask all the women I know to get in the shower with them and observe how they use it. I would have learned all that and saved myself a fortune, but back then I wasn't smart enough to do that. So that's story one.
Before you go to the Purell story, I just want to make sure that we're all pulling out of this what we came to get, which was, once again, if you did not stand in a shower and wonder why you don't have liquid soap, and then go wonder why someone else hadn't created it, if you didn't start with discontent, lead to research, which is initiated by wonder, and then move to action, we wouldn't have the products that we use. We all use your products every single day. So it's important that you stood there and wondered about it, thought about it, researched it, and took action, because that's what everybody else doesn't do. What most people do is they complain and go about their lives. What the most successful people do is they stop in the middle of the complaint and wonder, shouldn't there be liquid soap? Then you wondered what percentage of soap is used in a shower, and got the 77%. You wondered enough to drive you to action. But please tell us the Purell story.
All right, so that was like 1981 when I told that story. So now it's the very end of the 80s, and we get a call from a fast food chain that says we can't, the kids who work in our stores are very busy. They don't have time to leave their workstations to wash up, but they should be washing more, and we know they aren't. What can you do? And we moved forward from there and invented instant hand sanitizer. Now we got it, and we sort of liked the product. The only thing was, we made call after call after call, and the guy that called me in the first place said, yeah, I'm not really interested. And then we tried to sell it to other people, and they said, yeah, this is a bad substitute. People could wash their hands. Why would we want to do this product? Because then people won't wash their hands. So this is a case where we got an idea from somebody else. They expressed the need. We saw the need. We found a solution. But after finding the solution, we then took it out, and nobody was very interested. First of all, it was going to be more money, right? If you're buying soap for a business or a hospital or a restaurant, now you got to buy more stuff. No one wanted to spend more money. Number two, they had a real quick, good excuse. It's a cheap substitute. They can wash their hands. What happened? That was the end of 1988. Okay, what I'm proudest about is that we lost money for a decade. Now, why do I tell you that? Why do I tell you that? Because for the first decade, we gave a lot of samples away, a lot of samples. But we had our eyes open, and we noticed something. Our friends wanted samples of Purell when they went on a trip or when they sent their kids to camp. All right? Everybody we knew called our house every week for samples. And then one day I looked at our sample budget in the company, and it was huge. And then I started talking to more people in the company, and they said, yeah, our friends want it too. So almost everybody in our company was giving away Purell samples and loving it and using it. And nobody was buying it. Now, what do? Well, the first thing I did was went to my sales force, and I made it 1/3 of their bonus program was selling Purell. That did not work. All right? All they did is get mad at the end of the year when they didn't get that 1/3 of their bonus because they didn't sell any because nobody would buy it. But what did we know about it? And this is what I'm going to tell you. And it's why you got to get close. It wasn't that I thought it was a good idea like shower soap. It was that I saw people really like it. So my job was already done. I had proof of principle. Entrepreneurship is a long haul. The first thing you got to get is proof of principle. You got to know that what you have works, not that it's an abstract idea. We had a product and people really loved it. Now we had a simple problem. We just had to convince them to pay for it and to use it. And the breakthrough there, and I'll tell that real quickly, I'm not going to go on too long, but the point I want to make is that this time we actually saw that it was used and liked. It was faster. We knew it worked better. It killed more germs. It was better on your skin because when you wash, you take out all the oils and your skin dries out. And when you use Purell, it leaves the oils in your skin and just kills the germs, so it's better for your skin. For all these reasons, we knew we had a great product. No one would buy it. And then one day, a guy had an outbreak at Yale New Haven Hospital, a fellow named John Boyce. And people were really sick and really in trouble. And he went to his hospital board and he said, I want to put Purell in. And they said no, because then they won't hand wash. And he said, I've got to do something because I'm in charge of infections and we got a disaster here. They let him put it in 2 wards out of this whole big hospital. And guess what? The infections went away. But I'm going to ask you a question. What happened to hand washing at Yale New Haven? Ah, the pretty lady said it went up.
We're nurses.
Oh, they're nurses.
Epidemiologists.
Really? Epidemiologists in the crowd. Oh my gosh. This is my kind of audience. Wow. Well, the bottom line is hand washing went up. So if this was an index, if there were 100 hand washes before he put it in, there were about 40 additional Purell times, but there were 20 additional hand washings. So the total went to 160. Because when people are thinking about hygiene, they're thinking about it, they're in the mood to be thinking about safety, and they did it. Well, guess what? He wrote the CDC guidelines and the Joint Commission guidelines, and here we are today. So the reason I'm telling you that is there are some long hauls in life. You can have something that you know works, and I'm not so proud that we invented it. Frankly, a guy called us on the phone and told us he had a need. We went in the lab. We had great chemists who did that. I didn't do it. We had great chemists. But what I'm proud of is that we stayed with it. People do not adopt change quickly. We are animals that don't like change. So when you have a good idea, first of all, get proof. Don't leave it at the idea stage, and then stay with it.
Excellent, and thank you so much for sharing. We're actually going to pick up on your, yes, thank you, on your adapting to change, and we'll talk a minute about the millennial generation. I do want to tell everybody, by the way, you got our email about bringing samples, correct, in your car outside? I believe you.
Next time I'll come and bring samples. I'm sorry I didn't, actually.
I've been gone from Priceline a long time, and every week somebody asks me for an airline ticket or a hotel room, so I feel your pain. And by the way, for everyone else to know, Joe, since we have 3 guests tonight, after we do this next part, Joe will stay up here, and we'll do each of the 3 guests, and then we'll have an open Q&A for all the guests. So we're going to do it at the end to make sure all our guests have time to tell their stories. But you talked about we are animals that don't love change. I would just love to get your thoughts on either selling to or employing the millennial generation. What's different now selling to that customer who grew up with change, much more so than some generations did, and what's different about employing them?
Well, let me say a couple things. First of all, Jeff, we know that whatever story you told about your 5-year-old dates you a little because Today, a 5-year-old would not say, how do you make glass?
They would
would
Google
just go online and they would know it.
Yep,
and
you
know
are right.
more than you do. And so that's the perfect description of that 5-year-old who may well be a millennial today or will grow up to be whatever the next group is going to be. But one big difference, as you indicated, is that millennials have total access to information. So one of the things, I guess, one of the messages is I thought they asked me to make a few remarks about millennials. Okay, I'm the last guy in the world that's going to tell you my youngest child is 30 and my oldest of 12 grandchildren is 11. So I think I've missed the millennials sort of in between. I guess maybe he's a millennial, but I've sort of missed it. And I don't want to say that I understand millennials because I'm sure I don't. My kids, they all say I don't understand them a bit. What I do want to say is this. Our businesses need you guys for the very reason that I can't give you that I'm the wrong guy to ask about millennials. What I know about you, is we need you, all right? That we have fixed ways of looking at the world, and we get to be like I've been working since 1970, right? I think I'm a pretty smart guy. I think I've learned a lot. I get in my box, so to speak, all right? And I can't even begin to understand how millennials look at the world. And instead of me trying to figure it out, what I have to do is treat millennials as equals, put them on the teams, put them in the environment, and have them mentor me. So the old idea of mentorship was, all right, let's get some nice young fresh-faced college kids and young people in, and let's mentor them and tell them all we know. There's nothing wrong with some of that, because we do have experience. We may have experience in human nature and managing people, and we do have things to mentor, but I think you millennials have just as much to mentor us. Now, the good news is that you're braver than we were in our generation. That's another difference. And that is that many in my generation thought we had to get right out of college, get that first job. All right, I had a job way before college from the time I was, actually I worked even before I was old enough to work. But that was the way things happened back then. But you guys want experience, and you're not afraid to change jobs, and you're not afraid to go find something. And you've really got value. You've got this value of understanding the digitally connected world that I don't fully understand. And even if I understand it intellectually, I don't fully understand it viscerally. So what you've got to do in your role, if you're working in a company, is be brave, okay? And fight your way onto the teams. Fight your way to get your 2 cents in. And if you're on your own, you're even more free to do that. All those great startups that started in garages were by people who weren't afraid. And I think that's an advantage millennials have today. I know some of you, maybe you do get married early, maybe you do have responsibilities. It's not always easy. You have some college debt. Those are all issues. But I would say take the great skill you have that none of us old guys have and fight through with it, because you have a tremendous amount to add to the environment, because you'll help us see how to contact and be in touch, whether it's with our customers, whether it's how we think, whether it's access to information.
Thank you so much, Joe. Let's have a round of applause for our guest. Joe, Ian's going to come up and introduce our next guest. Joe, we want you to stay with us because we're going to come back to you for the Q&A.